introduce our next speaker, Peter Barr, online consultant. And Peter's going to be talking about the social media and the professional. Know the boundaries. Over to you. Do you need a minute or two?
A minute to find some electricity. Okay. When I found my electricity, I should be.
There's sockets here. Will it stretch over
socket.
here?
Oh yeah, brilliant.
Okay. You could be using a little bit of time to complete your feedback evaluation form on sessions you've already had, perhaps. Are you ready? Okay.
Technically, I need you to change that.
Dave's coming. Oh, just to get this down. Thank you, Dave.
It's not recognised it automatically. Worked early, didn't it? Yes. All right.
There you go.
That's me, yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, we're ready to start now. Thank you.
Am I right to stand here? Do you mind?
You do just whatever you want.
Right, good afternoon. I hope it's okay if I actually sort of walk around and do most of my presentations kind of sort of along here. And the reason I do that, because if I can introduce myself, it kind of says Peter Bauer, Online Safety Consultant. And to give you an idea of what this consultancy means, I actually spend most of my days consulting with the most incredible experts around online technology and media and internet. And the thing about these experts I talk to is they normally sit on the floor in front of me because I'm in primary school assemblies a lot of my time, and they always do assemblies by putting the 4-year-olds in front of you, 5, 6, 7, 8. And actually I have to say, I don't mind you at all. They are terrifying, these 4-year-olds, because what they do is they shuffle on their bottoms towards you, and I find myself doing assemblies like this, where I'm sort of creeping further and further back. I'm pinned up, and what's even worse is they grab your trousers. And they kind of sort of say things to you like, I live in a Call of Duty house, and things like that. And I've had a 5-year-old tell me that recently, which terrified me, because this 5-year-old's playing Call of Duty with his older brother and dad at home, and seemed to think it was okay. But anyway, that's partly my job. What I also do, as you can see from the title, it says Social Media and the Professional, is I do a lot of training. So my training involves anybody involved in working with children and young people, but also wider communities around, for example, social workers. And at the moment, I'm working on a project where we've now designed a toolkit for social workers to make assessments, when they do a family assessment, taking into account what they see in the house, in terms of all the different devices that the parents and children are using. Another project I'm working on at the moment, just to give you a quick flavour of some of the work we do, and you might have seen it in the CPHVA magazine that's come out, is around the impact of pornography on developing teenagers and how that impacts upon their own development and their sort of perceptions of what healthy sexual relationships are. So it kind of gives you a flavour. It's quite a varied life that I lead. Now, I'm going to apologise straight away because I need to rush off because I've got a 4:36 train out of Paddington. So at the end, I'm really sorry if I do rush. I'm not being rude. You will see my email address at the end of the presentation, and also the presentation you're about to see is in a format which you can access online. So in other words, what you do is you literally go online and you can see it. You can see the whole presentation exactly as it is, but you can't download it. Sorry, that's the way of the world nowadays, isn't it? The organisation I work for won't give out, if you like, those slides to download, but they will allow you access to the presentation, and that will come through. I think Ethel probably will sort of deliver that out. Okay, the UK Safer Internet Centre, very quickly, just to set this in kind of context, what we do is we were set up about 4 years ago from finance from the European Union, and we actually provide resources and we provide training around being safe online. 4 years ago, we very, very quickly recognised it wasn't just about children. It was actually about adults, just as much as it was about children. And what children were actually doing online and what adults are doing online actually is pretty similar. We make mistakes. We make ourselves very, very public. So that's really what I want to sort of look at this afternoon. So what I want to do first of all really is think about what the issues are for us, for you, for anybody who's a professional in a digital world. So what I want to do is I want to concentrate on 4 areas. I want to think about this idea of a professional identity. What actually does that mean? So me, for example, as Peter Bauer, yes, I'm a social entity in terms of I use Facebook and all kinds of things, which will make you laugh because I've been on Facebook for 5 years and I now have 29 friends, which I think is pretty good going. I will talk to you about, don't laugh. It's just I'm the 14-year-old in the audience, actually. I'm the 14-year-old in the audience recently went, haha, 29 friends, loser. Thanks very much. But I'll talk about Facebook later because it's an incredible public domain, isn't it? Incredible. And Twitter, and we need to sort of talk about all those bits and pieces. So I want to think about identity. Who am I online, socially and professionally? And where are the boundaries? Because they are not like that. You know, they are blurred and they are really kind of connected, and that's what actually a lot of the networks we work in do, is the software behind them makes connections. Deliberately. They're meant to. Facebook is meant to make you be found. That's the reason it's there. So anyway, we'll move on from that. The second bit I want to sort of think about is risk and benefit in engaging, if you like, in communication with other people. Okay? So, you know, in other words, sort of text messaging, blogs, all those kinds of ways that we now communicate, which again, who can see what we actually are saying when we communicate?
The USA.
Absolutely. No, let's not get political, but yes, you are absolutely right. Fascinating coming up on the train this morning, reading all the Times sort of around the newspapers around the way that GCHQ, what kind of software it uses to track us, but that's another sort of thing, isn't it? The third area I want to look at actually is how you protect your professional identity. In other words, how can you make sure that when you communicate, when you do something to that presence online, to that profile, that actually you only get the people you want to see it. Because that's the toughest one of all. 29 friends, don't laugh. 29 friends actually is quite interesting, isn't it? Because actually, of the 29 friends, who are their friends can find them? Because that's the important thing. And the fourth and final sort of aspect of this is actually around organisations that you work within and their policies and procedures. And I know that this organisation, the organisations, you know, your unions, the professional bodies and so on, all now have policies and procedures in place to protect you, actually, most of the time. And so, you know, understanding where they are, how to find them, and what to look for is really important. What I want to do first of all, actually, is kind of set this in a bit of what I call kind of context. And what I want to do is I want to kind of get rid of the technology. In other words, I probably guessed, I am an ex-teacher actually, but I'm not an ex-ICT teacher. I don't really know very much about the technology itself. What I do know about what you can see on the screen is that they all connect to the internet. So when you've got Wii's and Xboxes and mobile phones and so on and so forth, that's the incredible world we live in. And if you think about your own home, how many of those have you got at home that are connected to the internet? 3, 4? So that's the way of the world, isn't it? And I think, I have to say, I love this picture. And I love this picture because look at the eyes. Because the eyes aren't looking at its fingers, it's looking at the entertainment. And already, this child, well, I don't know, a year to 18 months maybe, already has an intuitive sense of how entertainment actually works. That's incredible. Actually, that's how to date. This is much, much better, isn't it? So if you do deal with very, very small children, and actually Rosemary, wasn't it, our last presenter talked about push chairs and sort of actually some of the entertainment now that's actually made to fit onto a push chair to allow babies to look at an iPad and entertainment. Those kinds of things, that's amazing. It is an incredible world, and actually I have to say, I think it's fantastic. It's absolutely brilliant, isn't it? But actually, our last presenter, Rosemary, was talking about solids at 6 months. Here it is. That's your solids, that's better, isn't it? That's the way it should be. Alright? I think actually what this does is it sets it in context, isn't it? And that is that actually we all now live in this incredible digital world where incredibly small children, right up to, to teenagers, right through to us as adults and professionals, now live in a world that's connected completely and totally. And so that's what I want to kind of focus on. And just to give you a couple of bits and pieces, this is over a year old. Over a year old. It talks about things like 200 million tweets per day on Twitter. That's worldwide. And it talks about Average person, so that's worldwide, global figure, average person makes or receives 8 mobile phone calls per day. That is roughly 2.4 billion phone calls. This is an incredible world we live in. I don't want to sort of bore you with figures because I don't think that's what we're here to do. I want to sort of move on slightly to that and just take something I saw in the Times this morning. I was free on the train. It wasn't I was looking for first class. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Anyway, 4 in 10 parents are more likely to communicate with their children via text or email than by talking to them face to face. Isn't that sad? And actually, the next part of the report talked about they're still in the same house. They're actually at home. That's actually an amazing world that we're kind of growing up and our children are growing up into and living in. Okay, let's have a think about what we. Yes, please.
There was something in the news 2 weeks ago that actually a report showed that the vast majority of adults leave their home before they say good morning. So that's
Yep, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and most of my life is spent talking to teenagers about their habits online. It's absolutely true, isn't it? We all do that. Yeah, absolutely. Check it. I always check my emails before I go to sleep. Am I going to respond at 11 o'clock at night? Whatever. No. So anyway, look, let's have a look at this idea about who I am. Online, I am represented by this. Social network, bank, social media, the professional body I belong to, public media, newspapers, all those kinds of things. There is information about us. And that's a really important kind of understanding. And there are 3 areas I want to sort of focus on. Who I actually am, my profile, okay? And if you were to think about the number of profiles that you have online, and I don't just mean Facebook profile, I mean a profile in a bank, a profile in your professional organisation that represents you, a profile that you might have on Twitter, it might be social, and so on. It might be LinkedIn, but we have profiles. And they're all, if this is a word, findable. Okay? So that's who I actually am. But I also want to think about how can we find us, ourselves? Well, this is a really silly slide because I'm Googling myself. Okay? But I just want to give you an idea and also maybe some, not advice, please, but maybe just think about Googling yourself. Now, what you do in a Google search is you put these kind of speech marks around the name because what that does is it connects the 2 words together. If you just put in Peter Bauer, it starts with Peter, and you can imagine the billions of references to Peter. So this is a Peter Bauer search. That's me. This is page 2. 55,600 results in 0.21 of a second. This is page 2. I'm at the bottom. That's me. I'm on a register for a conference I went to. There were 2,000 delegates. Through that, it's linked to a profile I've got for my work, which says Peter Bauer is white, educated, experience, etc. That's how powerful the search engines are. Actually, Google's not the most powerful of all. Anyone come across 1, 2, 3 people? If you've got an Amazon wish list, it's on there. You can find your Amazon wish list on 1, 2, 3 people. 1, 2, 3, the numbers, people. The people are writing it down quickly. Go and have a look. It's amazing. It's amazing. You might have to get to page 194 to find it, and if you've got time, but actually it's still there. So that gives you an idea, doesn't it, about our online presence and actually who we are. But of course, we also produce stuff online, don't we? So in other words, we kind of, well, you know, some of you might be involved in film, video, all those kinds of things, and charts, images, music, web pages, articles, etc., etc. And of course, the bottom one's most important, comment. Because that's how we're judged, on the comments that we produce. That's where people make judgments about us, isn't it? You know, about maybe that throwaway comment about, I've had an hard day at the office, I've had another thing, as you can imagine. Actually, people will see that and will therefore make judgments about it. And the third thing that I think it's really important to kind of consider is this communication technology. In other words, what do we actually do when we communicate? Who can see our communications? And it's not a political question at all, but actually it is a very interesting question about things like, you know, emails and Skyping, messaging. The word game up there, I won't ask if anybody plays Call of Duty. I don't know if anybody does play Call of Duty, but actually that records, of course, you know, the kind of communication that you actually play. And actually on Call of Duty, just out of interest, and I do a lot of work around this, we know that those people who play with headphones and microphones and actually sort of record their kind of conversations, those conversations stay in place on the game's software. So there's a whole kind of raft of things about us now. Okay. Now then, let's move on. Let's
Sir,
see.
you put FaceTime then. Is
Yeah.
that recorded?
No, FaceTime is on iPad.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what
No, that's not recorded unless you want to record it.
Oh, no, that's fine.
So, but just in terms of actually, that's a really interesting concept. I haven't a clue. I haven't a clue if you're just calling somebody on FaceTime. Is it possible for Apple, that organisation, to actually be looking and spy? I don't know. I haven't a clue. It's a funny question, actually, isn't it?
That's not the other.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So it could be. So it's again to understand its public nature. So what I want to do is I want to kind of, if you like, categorise risk. You know, what are the risks of our online behaviour? What actually might be the consequences of some of the bits and pieces? So now what you'll see is that because my background's in education, and originally the UK Safe Internet Centre was set up around education, we aim a lot of this training at teachers. So there are some examples here that you'll see in a minute around teachers, but actually they refer to much wider sort of professional status as well. So if you see the word school, take that out and just think my organisation. So for example, in the first one here, postings by you, first risks. So where it says comments, it says inappropriate comments about other people or staff at your school. You know what I mean, organisations. Okay, here's the first kind of set of risks. Things that you actually write down, comments, photos, films, videos that you might be in, and groups, affiliations to certain groups and so on. All this is public. Okay, all this is public, so we need to sort of think about those kind of comments. Okay, the second area, if you like, is postings by others, other people, that actually link to you. Comments about you. Ever been tagged in a Facebook page? Yeah. You know, actually, that's the kind of posting by somebody else which actually affects you. Right? Is anyone not on Facebook, by the way? You can do something about it if you know it's there. You can go to the picture and untag it at the bottom. But actually, I would much rather have permission asked of me, which I can do. In notifications in Facebook, you can set a setting where you will be emailed for your permission. And if you don't want to give it, don't.
Yeah, very useful.
The other thing I will say about photographs and images, can you imagine the kind of conversations that I'm having around teenagers in the sort of the sex and relationships education field in schools around photographs and images and so on? Young people have no understanding about the permanency of an image. No understanding. Can I just tell you something about young people at the moment? There's something just come up, I don't know if any of you come across Snapchat? Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Well, what happens is you take a photograph of yourself using a mobile phone, send it to someone, and 10 seconds after they receive it, it kind of disintegrates and goes. Wow, I can take anything then, can't I, if it's going to disappear? But it doesn't. Because on YouTube, there's a film which shows you how to screen save the picture. And that's the first thing on YouTube when you put in Snapchat. So there's all kinds of risks, yes. How long have we got? Now, listen, my train's at 4:36. What's the point of it? The point of Snapchat is it's great fun to take images on using your mobile phone. And actually, 99% of it is just mucking around, literally. And so at the moment, we're seeing teenagers using it, and they send a funny photograph to their mates and so on. But after 10 seconds, it disintegrates and they can't. So they think, oh, it must be okay. So actually, it's more confident to do much more in a program. But anyway, so I'm not going to go there. I just want to outline, if you like, some of this idea about, you know, postings by others, you know, about you, okay? Comments by, and again, you can see the school bit there, can't you, about children, parents, and so on. And guess what? In schools, we're having enormous problems on Facebook where a parent writes on their Facebook page, "We don't like Mrs. So-and-so because she wouldn't let my son go to the toilet." Oh my God, that's the kind of comment we get. And suddenly we get what we call a flame war because another parent will reply saying, "Yeah, I don't like her either because she says too much homework." And suddenly Facebook becomes that school gate gossip arena. So anyway, but please do.
I'm a lecturer and I teach students, undergraduate students.
Well, no, yes, go on.
And they're quite young, some of them. And I am in the process of feeling I've got two personal students where one has written comments about the other on Facebook. The other one's very unhappy. And we obviously subscribe to a professional body, NMC Code, which I know
come back to the specific arena around the age group you're talking about, because I think what I deal with mainly are youngsters, children in schools, and adults. And actually, in the middle of this kind of group of students who actually still have a lot of those kind of very naive, immature kind of activities online that they do, without no real sort of, actually we are spreading into higher education in terms of some of the trends. Can I come back to that, actually? Okay, so, and the final bit, if you like, is, hopefully this doesn't happen around you. Ever heard of freight? Have you never heard of it? Facebook rape. That's what it is. Facebook rape. It actually exists. It's a term used by people who've actually managed to sort of get into somebody's account, either because they've left the account open, and have actually changed things. So they changed things from in a long-term relationship, changed it to single. That can cause some serious issues around it, and so on. But actually, so what we're talking about is where actually our things that we're doing, what we produce, our profile, and so on, can actually be changed. Okay? So those are, if you like, are the risks. Now, what I want to do is I want to go on and now sort of put in place, if you like, some kind of strategies, some kind of ideas around protecting ourselves, I suppose, in terms of us as professionals. I'm going to start it off in a, well, slightly unusual way, because I want to show you a very short video. It's only about 2 minutes long. And the concept of the video is how strange it would be if we took our online life into the real world. Okay?
Hi guys, can I be your friend? Can I write on your wall?
No.
Will you be my friend? But I write on all my friends' walls.
I think I'd have to know you before I was your friend.
All my friends have got like 180 friends. I've only got 2.
Yeah.
Would it help if maybe like you looked at my photos? That one's with 2 like really pretty girls. Like that's my ex. I was in a relationship with her, but I've changed my status now.
Okay.
Yeah. What's your relationship status?
Single.
Oh, good. Cool. I like that.
Do you?
Yeah.
Good.
I like your jacket.
Thank you.
I like your sunglasses. Do you like that?
Yeah.
Do you want to comment on it? I like your Ray-Bans. Could I poke you? Poke? Poke? No?
No.
What, poke? What, you want to poke?
Can I poke you?
Yeah, you can poke me if you want.
Yeah.
I mean, how am I... No, dude, seriously, just be my friend. If I just show you these pictures in this photo album... What's your name on Twitter?
Mark Dolivo.
Oh, so you use Twitter?
Yeah.
I'm going to follow you.
Okay.
Cool. Well, I'm going to follow you.
Right, okay.
Wicked, cool.
Great.
All right, thanks a lot. Nice one. Thanks,
Okay.
guys. Yeah. Wicked. Bye. Cheers. Wicked. All right, thank you. That's great. Wicked. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Oh, you're actually following me.
I'm following you.
Should we go?
Okay.
Okay.
Should we go or?
Good place to finish there, really. It's a kind of a slightly humorous sort of introduction to this kind of idea about our online life and how actually sometimes it takes over. Can I just give you, though, 3 examples of things that for 3 professional people have gone wrong? Okay? Now, the first one actually is a school example, and the example is this. This is a Friday night. 6 teachers and teaching assistants in a primary school, I won't say where in the country, but it doesn't matter, but anyway, decided on a Friday night to go out and enjoy themselves, and why wouldn't you? You're absolutely shattered at the end of the week, and a fantastic time. That's a pretty innocuous photograph, isn't it? The second one's slightly more risky. But what actually happens is the person taking the photographs puts them onto Facebook. A parent of one of the children at the school finds, through a circuitous route, friend of friend, actually finds the two photographs, doesn't actually go up to the teacher and say ha ha ha, actually prints off about 50 copies of the photographs, goes around the town and posts them through letterboxes of other parents. And guess which newspaper found the story? The Daily Mail. The disgrace of the 6 drinking, pole dancing primary school teachers who published the pictures on Facebook. You know, I have the greatest of sympathies for these 6 people. I really do. But what I would say to these particular, and what I do in the training that I do for professionals who directly work with children and young people, which will be a lot of you, is actually we don't work in a bank, we don't work in a garage or on a farm. We work with children and young people, which actually puts us in a slightly more vulnerable, if I can use that word, state. It does. I think that's a really horrible story, but actually the person taking the photographs should have known better than to put them unprotected onto Facebook. And that's a really important message, I think, for us all. Second one's a little bit more high profile. This is Sally Burko, remember her? And the tweets that she made around McAlpine. And he then, went to court, etc. And she eventually paid $15,000 to a charity because that's, he didn't also take it to court and so on, but getting into trouble with tweets. And I think this one's the most tragic of all, actually, in a way. Remember her? Yes. She's Paris Brown, isn't it? Now, this is a fascinating one to show younger people. Sorry, that's no disrespect saying you're older people, but you know what I mean, because she's 17. 17 years old when she gets this incredible £16,000 a year job. And unfortunately, this is her face. And look at that. And it's tweets which she made when she was 14 years old. 3 years ago are there to be found. Permanent reminder of what you do as a 14-year-old. Now, I know that's inappropriate stuff, but actually, teenagers make mistakes, don't they? Again, I kind of feel, well, she shouldn't have said some things, definitely. She certainly shouldn't have said them in public. That's a great lesson, isn't it, to maybe some of your students. It's an interesting one. When I use this in sixth forms, for example, they'll go, oh yeah, we've heard all about her and all kinds of things. So hopefully they're starting, younger people are starting to understand. 3 examples of where things have gone wrong. Now, what I want to do is I want to look at Facebook specifically and Twitter just a little bit, just to give you some kind of ideas of things that you can do so that we can continue to socialise online, because that's what we now do. We don't just socialise in a face-to-face environment. We are able to socialise online, we're able to share, we're able to actually make decisions about those relationships we have with our friends, etc., based on what we do online. And so our social life is a 24/7 thing. It's now no longer that kind of meet up and have a chat, etc., etc. So when I talk about implications for professionals, what I'm thinking specifically is around this next slide, which I think is quite interesting. And this is a slide, it's a survey, something like 1,500 UK and American and German French employers. And the question is ever simple: have you ever rejected a candidate because of what you saw about them on a social networking site? And the answer pretty much is yes. Only 5%, 1 in 20 employers now do not actually use search engines and social networking to find out information about us. So there are massive implications for us in society around the information that's out there about us. And if you want to know how they actually make those searches, well, there's a whole list of things there, search engines down to gaming sites, to blogs, to LinkedIn, to auction sites, to websites, and so on and so forth. Massive amount of ways that we can actually be found, okay? And if you want to know the kind of information that's used to make those decisions to reject a candidate from a shortlist, well, here they are. Concerns about lifestyle, inappropriate comments and texts written by the candidate, unsuitable photos, videos, inappropriate comments and texts written by friends and relatives, comments criticising previous employers. The list goes on and on, doesn't it? So in other words, what we think we're underlining here this afternoon is around people make judgments about us now, not on what they see face to face, but actually what they can find about us online as well. Now we can do things about that, okay? And I'm going to spend 2 minutes at the most talking about it. I'm very aware of time, your time, and how know you're running a bit behind time, aren't we? All right, but there are some things you can do. You know, and the very first one says understand your friends list. I'm not going to go through them one at a time by any means. I just want to give you this as an idea. My 29 friends on Facebook. All right. Well, actually, first one of those is my wife. Now she's a friend, obviously. I'm not saying she's not, but actually, so that takes my friends down to 28. I've got 2 children. That's 26. I've got 4 sisters. That's 22. I've got 12 nephews and nieces. That's 10. I've got 7 acquaintances. I have no clue why they're on Facebook, but they are. There are 3 human beings in my life that actually I would interact with using an online environment who I kind of trust. So it's sporting sort of stuff that we do together and we talk about and make arrangements for. That's very, very different. But the interesting thing about that is I've just categorised my friends. Just categorised them. Family, it's my wife, 2 children, you know, relatives, sisters, nephews and nieces, acquaintances and best friends. And what I've actually done on my Facebook account is I have actually set the default privacy setting to family. So every time I do anything, what happens is the drop-down box comes up and it sort of shows me that family is ticked and the others aren't. So if I want to open up that privacy, all I do is tick another box. Acquaintances or best friends and so on. So suddenly I've got more people that I can communicate, share and do whatever I want to. Ever so easy to do. Okay? And there are lots of other bits and pieces there about how to make yourself safer using Facebook. And there is a very new, fairly new development, about 6 months old now, but not actually that many people know about it. It's the privacy shortcuts. And the interesting thing about it is the very first one on there says, who can see my stuff? So if you do have Facebook, okay, go to the privacy shortcut, right-hand corner at the top, the settings button, it will drop down. First question, who can see my stuff? Click on it and you can find out what the people you work with, your colleagues, your family, your friends, maybe even some of, if I can use the word clients, for whatever reason, who might have a connection to you. That's the way of the world. And you can see what they can see. So is it appropriate what they can see or not? Okay, so privacy shortcuts, quite interesting. And on Twitter, okay, this is a little bit more difficult, Twitter, because Twitter's meant to be public, it's not meant to be private. And there are 2 sort of settings. This is Trino Pete, this is me, that's my Twitter name. Please don't write it down and sort of follow me. You can if you want, I suppose, follow, that'd be great. But actually, look at that, it says about public and protected tweets. There are 2 things you can do. The default is public. So in other words, if you start using Twitter or you're using it now, the default is everybody can see your tweets. Everybody. But you can set it up, so if you want to, you can make them private to only the people that you approve as followers. Okay? It's ever so easy to find. Just go into Twitter and have a look in their help page. Because Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, Flickr, Instagram, all these. Is this me making a noise? Yep. Is it because I'm wandering around not moving? Right? I won't move now. All these sites allow you to set privacy and allow you to see what the public can see about you, and that's really important. And just finally, this idea about reviewing policy and practice in the organisation and for the individual, as it says up there. I'm not here to advertise any sort of product. There is a free, totally free self-review tool, okay, and it's actually called Online Compass. I'm not advertising a product, you just don't pay anything. You just download and you can actually review the safety of your organisation, the professionals within it, the people who use the organisation, and to give you a kind of feel for what it is, it talks about management, people, technology. And it's a way of reviewing how safe you, and if you work as a team of 2 or 3, or if you work as a team of thousands, it can be used to review the organisation. Are there policies in place which can help you, okay, with some of the issues that we've been talking about? And just finally, now I've got postcards for the last 2 things, and again, this is a free resource. Now, you can see here it says Contact Professionals Online Safety Helpline. It is, strictly speaking, European funded in terms of its remit is around issues related to children and young people. But we are accepting calls and referrals from any organisation where there are sort of issues around the sort of online technologies, and basically it's an advice line. And so I've got postcards, so if you want to take one on your way out, please do. I've got one around the online campus as well. Now, if anything from today, the two most useful, if you like, links from what I'm saying would be to that self-review, and the second lead to the sort of helpline. Because lots and lots of organisations actually find it really, really difficult to deal with some of the issues which are coming out, emanating from this incredible digital world that we're all sort of living in. Okay? So that's that, and then really, as I promised at the beginning, God, that was a whistle-stop tour. I'm really aware of sort of time. But there's my email address. Please don't hesitate to write it down. And if you want to personally email me with any comments or any questions about some of the bits and pieces, what I will say to you is, what I've just said in 35 minutes normally takes a whole morning, a whole afternoon, and for example, in some groups, actually a whole day. So I'm going to put that into 40 minutes. Can I say thanks so much? Really nice that you've invited us here, and I hope that was very quick and very useful.
I think that was extremely helpful, Peter, and we do understand that you've got to fly off now. But again, could we just show our appreciation for a very good presentation?
I'll take one or two now.
Okay, one or two questions. Has anybody got a question or a comment for Peter? We've got a couple of minutes. If anybody would like to. Yes, we have somebody over here, and we have somebody. Thank you.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's called "Can I Be Your Friend?" I knew it.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant video, isn't it? I've also got here a Facebook safety checklist, which is really useful. So, if I give those, can you take one? Take one and hand one on. All right.
And Rosemary, I think you had a question.
You said that each place has a place you can get information on about being safe.
Yeah.
So
Do you mean like Facebook? Yeah. Yeah. Well, that actually is. We've actually produced that. So what it does is it links through and shows you how to get rid of an account, how to delete the accounts, what to do with your photographs, and so on. So that's really useful. And I've got those postcards of that free Professionals Online Safety Helpline as well. Can I, as I leave, if I leave them sort of at the back, is that all right? Yeah, I've got some of those as well. Thank you ever so much indeed. I'm sorry I have to dash.
You don't have something like this for Twitter, because that goes public. You know that?
Not for Twitter we don't, but actually if you look on Twitter itself, go into the help section, it's amazing. It's actually really good. Facebook's brilliant as well. So they have a sense of responsibility, so yeah.
Thank you very much, Peter. Could I make a reminder, as some people are leaving, excuse me, please fill out your evaluation forms. Very, very important to get feedback on this. Obi.